an advocacy update, what we know and what you can do. This meeting is being recorded, so the recording will be available afterwards. And today we have 5 speakers. We have Executive Director of IHLS, Leslie Bednar, Dr. Carol Hogan-Downey, the Communications and Advocacy Administrator, Ashley Stewart from EveryLibrary, and Jennifer Robertson from Carbondale Public Library, and Nichole Lauko from Millstadt Public Library. And a couple of housekeeping things before we begin. Please make sure that you rename yourself. You can do that with the top or the buttons in your Zoom box. You'll see those 3 buttons. Please rename yourself to either your first name and your library, or optimally your first and last name. We have also disabled the chat, so you can ask any questions in the Q&A. If you do not see that at your bottom of your screen, go to that More button, the circle with the 3 dots, and see if it's an option there. That will be monitored. We also will be taking questions 2 times during this event. We'll be taking questions after Ashley Stewart speaks and after Nichole Lauko speaks. So I think that's all I have for housekeeping. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Leslie.
Thank you, Kate. I'm going to share my screen. See if this works. Just a second, I need to put it in a different mode. Or you can just see the slides. We can do it that way too. Okay, we're going to do it this way. Good morning, everyone. I'm Leslie Bednar, the Executive Director of the Illinois Heartland Library System. I'm so happy you're taking part of your day to spend with all of us to talk about our continued advocacy efforts related to the Institute of Museum and Library Services funding. So as a background, the Illinois Heartland Library System is powered by a System Area and Per Capita Grant annual allocation. The Illinois State Library, who administers the grant, uses a portion of their IMLS Grants to States annual award to support part of our delivery services within that grant. You may be aware that, well, hopefully you are all aware that in March there was an executive order issued that would have effectively closed or terminated all programs for the Institute of Museum and Library Services and several other federal agencies. Following that executive order, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul and 20 additional states attorneys general filed a suit against Keith Sonderling, who is the acting head of the Institute of Museum and Library Services. The goal in this action was to stop targeted elimination of IMLS and 2 other federal agencies. And those are the Minority Business Development Agency and the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service. At some point this spring, and I think technically we're still in spring, early spring, Illinois received a partial award of its federal fiscal year 2025 grants to states allocation. On May 6th, the plaintiffs in that legal action were granted a preliminary injunction in a federal court. This allowed IMLS staff to return to the office and to continue the work that was assigned to them basically in FY 2025. The Illinois budget recently passed both houses at the end of May, and the governor is expected to sign it soon. Illinois received the remainder of its FY 2025 IMLS grants to states program, so they are current with the current federal fiscal year. IHLS has submitted our FY 2026 System Area Per Capita Grant at the requested funding level to the Illinois State Library. The funding level for FY 26 is the same level as the current year we're in, FY 2025. Our application includes delivery services at this year's service level. So there is no change from FY 2025 to FY 2026 in terms of our services, especially including delivery to our member libraries. You also may be aware that the Illinois State Library holds those federal funds from one fiscal year, the federal fiscal year, to the following state fiscal year. So we are looking forward to notification from the Illinois State Library regarding our FY 2026 SAPG allocation, our application, my bad. So now thinking about the federal fiscal year 2026 proposed budget, the administration proposed to zero out IMLS and other agencies again for federal fiscal year 2026, which begins October 1. The same proposal was applied to similar agencies like the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. So we aren't in this alone. The budget action in Congress right now is in what is called the reconciliation process. So there's a proposed budget, and then both houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate, go through what's called reconciliation, where they consider what more detail basically in that budget. And we are aware that there is growing bipartisan support for the Institute of Museum Library Services to be funded in the federal FY 2026 year. However, we still have two proposals we have two hurdles that we need to clear. First, there has to be, for IMLS to be active and functioning in fiscal 2026, starting October 1. There needs to be a reallocation of the Museum and Library Services Act. The current law sunsets on September 30th, 2025. And the federal budget must have financial support for IMLS to operate in their 2026 fiscal year. It is essential that our federal elected officials in the House and the Senate hear from their constituents. The good news is that library supporters were successful in a similar action about 7 years ago. It took advocacy effort on the part of libraries across the country to ensure that IMLS continued, and that reauthorization happened of the Museum and Library Services Act. We also know that, like many endeavors, there is strength in numbers, and we certainly are seeing more and more voices speak up. So what needs to happen is that our citizens, your patrons, reach out to their representatives and let them know the impact of a proposed cut to IMLS, what that means to them on a personal level, what it means to their neighbors, their friends. That personal storytelling is very effective in advocacy. And even if you're brand new to saying, hello, Representative Jones, I'm your constituent. I'm concerned about a proposed cut to the Institute Museum Library Services for fiscal year 2026. Even if you've never done that before, via a phone call to their local office, via an email sent to their office, a hard U.S. mail letter, hard copy U.S. mail, or any other methods of connecting with your representatives. You can do this, and you're already advocating. You already have the connections in place to be able to do that. We have a great panel here for you today who are going to talk about what is happening on the ground in their communities to give you a bigger picture of what to anticipate from library leadership across the country and what's currently going on to promote the continuation of the Institute of Museum Library Services. You have more connections than you even realize in your community, if you're involved in a community organization, and even those folks that you meet at church or at the grocery store. There are very organic ways to advocate for anything. And today we're talking about advocating for the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Additionally, IHLS has several advocacy resources that are available to you and that we continually update, and you're going to learn about that next. So thanks for spending your morning with us. We hope it's helpful, and we hope that you will speak up at the 2 points in the conversation that Kate made us aware of. So you can tell us what you need from us. You can share with everyone what you're doing on your end, and we can together build a stronger coalition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. In case you joined us a little bit later, I do want to remind everyone to please rename yourself to either your first and last name, which is our top choice, or your first name in your library. We also have the chat disabled, so please ask any questions in the Q&A button or the Q&A screen. If you do not see that on your screen, please click the More, and you should see that as an option. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carol Hogan-Downey to tell you all about some of the resources we have through Illinois Heartland Library System.
Thanks, Kate. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, sorry. it doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm here to show you the resources that we have on our website for you. So whenever you're going to go to anything like a resource guide that we've created dealing with a specific issue in librarianship, you're going to go to, in the main menu up here, Issues. It doesn't drop down, I think, because we keep adding various guides. So you can, of course, go to the IMLS advocacy page right here, or you can, read through all of these fun little descriptions and go this way. And so we have our little introduction to the issue, and then we have the resources here organized, the first 3 tabs organized by, to whom you're speaking, your audience, because different audiences, of course, have different values, perhaps, priorities, or, just a different way of understanding things. So first, speaking to your patrons and the public. We have this one pager I will click down to in just a sec, and also these IMLS benefits infographic flyers, this is an ALA one pager. This takes you straight to their Dropbox. It's making me accept cookies because I'm using a private browser because the website looks different for me with my login than it does for other people. So ALA, I think they have 16 or something of these. They made one for Illinois, just kind of going over some general stuff, how much money the state receives, and like how often people are visiting the libraries, the public libraries, and circulations and things like that. It's a much larger view. It's still useful because they can see, like, oh, this is how much money our state's going to have to, like, either find elsewhere, or the programs that are supported are going to have to shrink or do something. But it's a great little one pager. And then we have the one that we and Rails are working on together. So we have these, there's the patron and public facing one to the right over here. We chose this one for patron and public, I think, because it really breaks down like exactly the work that's being done with this money. So for every dollar, you're going to see 4.3 items delivered, 1.7 miles driven, 3.4 residents served. And also, as you'll see up here, this is Central and Southern Illinois focused because, of course, as I'm sure many of you know, a lot of Central and Southern Illinois residents are very concerned about money or good things coming into Central and Southern Illinois, not just the Chicago area. And so this shows, no, actually your neighbors, we are benefiting from this money. Here's how much money we get and the savings that it produces. Going back up, so we went over those. Of course, speaking to your trustees, they are, of course, they're a lot like patrons of the public, but they also, are elected or appointed officials. They have certain responsibilities. Again, there's that one pager that I showed you earlier from ALA and the trustee facing flyer or document. Well, okay. So we have these three. I have them also, by the way, these flyers, as you see here, are images. If you click, it'll open it in a new tab to show you the full image. You can save it by right-clicking, hit save image as, and you'll get to like rename it. I don't know if you'll be able to see this dialog box that pops up, the save as box. And, yeah. So that's what we did that because we figured it might be easier to share on social media, or if you just want to text it to somebody or what have you. But if you want to print it out and have it available, we have these printable versions. That's a PDF that just downloaded. I don't recommend sharing the PDF on your website because I have not made it. It's very, very, very complex to make it accessible. So I would recommend using an image, and we have the alt text available here. Copy and paste again. And to make that go away, you click again. So the same thing is happening here for these 3 pages of the statewide trustees document. This was created by our colleagues at Rails with a statewide perspective in mind. And again, any of these is going to be the printable version, all 3 pages. So it just seems like visually better to have those 3 buttons there. Again, you have your alt text with some instructions. And then elected leaders beyond the library. It starts to bulk up a bit because there are several different tools that various organizations have put together for us to use. So those who are familiar with 5 calls, that is an app and a website, and you select an issue, you put in, where you live, like I think your zip code, and it will give you a script and the phone numbers of your representatives, your federal representatives, and just call them and read the script. I think they even have something set up for like if you get the voicemail, it's different, but it's supposed to make it a lot easier. So you can do that as a private citizen. You can also, share on your social media or tell friends. But when we're talking to elected leaders, that's where I know that our lawyer said, you got to be careful about advocating for people to contact elected leaders specifically, because that starts to get into political activity. Elected leaders not being trustees. That's different. We have this great getting started page from the ALA, similar vibe to the 5 calls, and more fun stuff from ALA. We have EveryLibrary. We'll hear from Ashley from EveryLibrary here in just a bit. Again, some great tools, a petition, an email, just some action that you can do. And then we have our benefits flyer, the legislator facing one. So this one is focusing this one is still, when I say your constituents on this means Central and Southern Illinois. Again, because I know there are representatives from Central and Southern Illinois, especially the federal, federal and statewide, tend to be really, obsessed with the idea that Chicago is getting all the benefits in our state. And that's not happening. As you can see here, this demonstrates. And so, useful. Now we also have some toolkits and talking points and sources. So more something awesome from ILA about how to advocate. This is a broader thing than just IMLS. EveryLibrary, they're always coming out with cool tools. And also something from the American Alliance of Museums. And so it's just kind of some updates. And you can, and then we have, if you want to stay updated on the issue, ALA has a really up-to-date page. And it's just where you can sign up to receive email updates. Of course, also Rails has a library pulse page on the issue. They're not, they're I think focusing more on more specific announcements. So you'll see their last thing, the timeline is May 6th, but like official announcements and things like that. But the Rails page is great for sort of an overview. And we also have the bottom here, a social media video. I believe I've set this up so that you can share it personally, or your library can, because I think I took out briefly, I had the idea of saying contact your representatives till I learned that it wasn't a great idea. For this, right click. I'm guessing on your phone, maybe you could touch and hold. I would probably just do it on a desktop. Save video as, get the same dialog box, and you can choose. There are also directions on how to upload it. And I even have an image for you to use as your thumbnail, or I think they call it a cover video on Facebook. This is set up in a narrow view for, well, because a lot of videos now on social media are set up so that you can watch them on a phone, where most people are accessing social media. And it's definitely set for TikTok or Instagram, what have you. And so that's what we've got right now. I am also playing with, or I'm also working on a multi-image Instagram post. So stay tuned for more information on that. It'll be in the newsletter, and I'll also probably put it in our official business email list right here that you can see, you can subscribe to. Excuse me. And so you'll hear about it for sure. But that's what we've got for now. I'd love to hear also if you have any other ideas, please, share them in the Q&A. What have you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. And now our next speaker is Ashley Stewart with EveryLibrary. If you are not familiar with Ashley, Ashley is very intimately familiar with the Illinois library community and Illinois Heartland Library System. And she is going to be talking to us about effective advocacy tips. So thank you for joining us, Ashley.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me. It's always such a pleasure to be back in my home turf. I just feel like I'm coming back home. And it's so great to see all of the familiar names of people that are here. So welcome. So I'm going to try not to confuse and make it confusing. But I know the line of what people can say and what people can't say can get blurry. So my hope is to provide some clarification. And obviously, I'm here to answer questions. So, and as people know, I do want to preface that I have served as a public library director, and then I also just finished a 4-year term as a township trustee. So taking the oath of office as a trustee, you understand what that responsibility is and the duty to inform and being that fiduciary, having that fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. If there is anything going on with the finances that could impact your local units of government, AKA library, anything else that's happening with our schools and everything, trustees have the responsibility to inform the community of what's going on. So we'll get into all of that, but I just wanted to let you know if you have any questions about that. I have been a trustee, so I'm also coming with that hat on. So what are your rights and what are your limitations? So public servants, they're typically allowed I'm going to move this because it's on my way. Okay. Effectively, anything that's restricting, they may, let's see. Oh, here we go. There we go. Sorry, my view was blocked. They may share their views and engage in issue-based advocacy during their personal time. So that's where we'll talk about what you can do in your personal time when you're off the clock versus what you can do when you're on the clock. Partisan is also different from, like we said, funding issues. So more partisan will be like if you're advocating for a candidate versus if there's issues coming down with legislation pertaining to funding. And I also want you to think of advocacy as a mission-aligned public education. So again, our responsibility to educate the public on what's happening. And so just think of advocacy as just realigning with our mission as libraries. So what is allowed typically? I always, again, preface, make sure you talk to your own attorneys. I'm not an attorney, but on the top level surface, issue-based advocacy, public servants can advocate for specific issues if they're related, if it's related to their profession, without being tied to a political party and/or candidate. Expressing your opinions, you can voice your opinions about the events, issues, or matters of public interest, including those related to the profession. Participating in the democratic process, obviously. We're public servants, so we vote, we register to vote, we help others register to vote. You can participate in all of those other aspects of a democratic society and your civic responsibility, being a public servant. And then joining organizations. So on your personal time, you can join professional, if it's a professional organization, but then if there's also other organizations that you want to join, you have the right to do that. So again, it's what you can do, just being a public, as a resident, a citizen engaging in our democracy. What's prohibited typically is partisan political activity while on duty. So this could be engaging with a political party or a candidate or a ballot measure while you're on the clock. Using your official capacity to influence elections. So, I want to, sway how the election's going to turn out. Engaging in political activity in the workplace. So again, think of it as if it's government paid for, if it's government time, government resources, government staff, do not engage in political activity. But again, that is, candidates, those kind of, campaign, if it's political, making political contributions. So cannot make political contributions while you're on duty or at the workplace. So that's just a background of what you can and can't do. Also, when you have a question, listen to the attorneys, especially now that there's funding cuts happening across the board, unfortunately, potential funding cuts and actual funding cuts. So the ACLU has been a great resource, again, letting people know what you can and can't do. So for, they explicitly say as a government employee, you still have your First Amendment right. That will never go away. So as a private citizen, you can speak on the matter. You can speak on it as a matter of public concern and informing people. And as long as your speech doesn't interfere with your job. And then Kennedy Hunt Law is out of St. Louis. And so sometimes if you know of someone like a local attorney, they're being, they're putting more information out there. So for them, they said government employees are also protected for speaking out on matters of public concern. So you as a resident, you as a citizen, you still have your First Amendment right. You can still speak to those issues. Just be careful of what you do on your public time and your private time. And then again, just reiterating the fact, regardless of where people work, you still have the right to free speech, free association. So again, you can advocate for libraries as much as you want to in your own time. Now, what you can do in your work time. So this is where I know some attorneys are saying you can't contact your legislators. I took this verbiage directly from the Secretary of State's notice that went out. So raising awareness and making your voices heard came directly from the Secretary's memo and his statement. So I also compare this to other issues that are happening in Illinois. Some may be aware, but there's a mascot. There have been some legislation recently about mascots with Native American cultures, and that's been a big thing. So being in Collinsville, my school district is Collinsville, that has been a big issue locally. And the school district has told on official school district, the superintendent himself is saying, contact your legislators. So take that for what it's worth. Again, I'm just taking this directly from the Secretary of State saying, make your voices heard. I'll get into kind of if you're not as comfortable doing that, there's other ways to do that. So public awareness is a public duty. Public awareness meaning informing. So government units have the responsibility to inform residents, again, propose legislation, explain how that impacts your local services, engage with the public and be transparent in a nonpartisan way, just very informational. Again, trustee hat, we have the responsibility to do that. And then library leadership, but empower your community members too to take action. So this is where, and we'll get into it. If you're not comfortable on your library letterhead doing it, use the resources available from the organizations and the other 501c3s who are putting that information out there. Types of public awareness. So flyers and handouts, physical informational displays. You can hold information sessions or town halls. You can make an official statement from the board. Some boards are just saying, we as the board want to provide this information. So all of that are different types of public awareness. And then again, an informed public is essential for a functioning democracy. Silence helps no one, especially not the people that we serve. A lot of people want to advocate for the library. They just don't know how, or they want to know more about what's going on. And so that's where informing them that's pretty much where you have to start. Okay, so this is where leaning on your friends. If you don't feel comfortable doing it in the library's official capacity, lean on your friends or other 501c3s to do that for you. So, what 501c3s can do, they can educate the public about legislation, pretty much the same thing, but then they're covered under the 501c3. ALA is 501c3, EveryLibrary. We have our institute side, which is 501c3, ILA, IHLS, and then your friends groups, foundations, and then other, 501c3s who are willing to put that information out. It also creates that safety barrier. Again, if people are nervous about what they can and can't do during work time, feel free to lean on them. What else is nice is 501c3s will sometimes have discounted postage rates. And so if you are if you're interested in putting a mailer out, if you're interested in doing something like that, consider that. Friends groups can use a percentage of their income or their, what was in their account, their revenue from the previous year for advocacy work. So definitely lean on them if that's something they're willing to do. If they already put a newsletter out, ask them if they would be willing to put that in. Likewise, if there's other community newsletters that are going out, ask them if they would be willing to put this information in there. Also, we know that friends and other 501c3s help increase your network and your sphere of influence. So again, definitely lean on them. That's what friends are for, right? And then helpful guides. I lean on Alliance. What's a word for the day? I use Alliance for Justice and Boulder Advocacy. They are nonpartisan. Boulder Advocacy is underneath Alliance for Justice, but it's a nonpartisan organization. They have fantastic guides and checklists for advocacy type work for 501c3s and 501c4s, what's allowed and what's not. So that is extremely helpful. Again, I know people are like, I just want to know what we can and can't do. So there are other people that are putting those resources out there. So definitely use those. And then town halls matter. It allows you to be visible and vocal. In this time, we know making sure people are aware of it is key. And then we also know that's where decisions are being made. We have seen some fantastic responses when legislators attend your local legislative meetup. So that is just a fantastic example of, regardless of political party leanings, people are interested. They want to know what's happening. They want to know how that's going to impact your local residents. And they show up and they listen. And so we also know misinformation spreads fast. So we definitely want to get out there and make sure to put correct information out there as much as we can to combat any of that misinformation that's happening. Again, your library leadership and your library lovers, same thing. They can host the town hall. So if a friends group wants to host a town hall, or if it's a coordinated efforts, you can even have like groups of friends doing town halls. You can have groups of libraries doing town halls, however it works for you in your community. And this is also where attending other local town halls or meetings is helpful too. So going to where the people already are and informing them of what's happening. I know superintendents are really interested and concerned. They want to know what's happening to libraries. And you can really say that for any other unit in the community. We have great community partnerships, we as library directors. And so speaking from when I was a library director, you're already very well involved in the community. You already have those relationships. So leaning on each other to let them know, hey, this is how this could impact our partnership. This is how this could impact the services that we offer. They want to know that as well. And then it's a great time to listen and report back. And then building those alliances. It's a lot easier to tackle something and people are more willing to listen when there's a lot of people speaking out about it and not just library people. So when you can get other people in other segments of the community also saying, hey, this is a problem. This could affect tutoring. This could affect our translation services, anything like that. So other people do care. They just need to know about it. So, legislators right now are hosting town halls. So I have seen some recently advertised in my local area, but now that the session is over, legislators are hosting their own town halls. So if you do see anything like that in your community, you can host the town halls, but by all means attend them. So we love when legislators allow themselves to be available to the public, so take advantage of it. And again, you can go in either capacity. You can go as the library director saying, hey, this is an issue and or a library board member, we're really concerned about this and the library funding. You can also go personally. But it's a great way to introduce yourself if you haven't already and just have those conversations. A lot of legislators too, they're willing to come to the library and have those discussions. And that's where having that informational material, those flyers, those graphics, they do pay attention. Okay, so some background about understanding your legislator. They're people too, so don't be so scared. I'm trying not to make it as scary, but they're humans too. They have their own interests, and yeah. So what helps when reaching out to legislators is I always wanted to know, like, what were they interested in? What is their experience? I wanted to know, like, what bills they've sponsored, what committees they serve on, attending their forums or town halls. A lot of them are starting to put them online or the recorded version. So you can watch one from last year or some other times, some of their press releases or their, statements that they come out with. On certain issues, you learn a lot about the legislator themselves just by what they are putting out on their platforms. Identify a common ground, or you can tailor your messaging. So maybe a legislator's not super interested in, I don't even know. Most legislators are interested in Wi-Fi, literacy rates, workforce development. But the point is, if maybe they're especially motivated or interested in one area than another. So just by doing that background research, you get to learn about them more, and then you can tailor your messaging to suit them. And again, dig into their sphere. Like, where are they spending their time? Who are they spending their time with? Who are their allies? Who are their enemies? You learn a lot about the legislator and the person themselves. And so again, it allows you to tailor your messaging when you do reach out to your legislators. And again, I think I mentioned it, but watch their interviews, press conferences, and then signing up for their newsletters. So you learn a lot too. And it helps you to stay informed if they have any upcoming events going on, if they plan to have an appearance somewhere. Signing up for their newsletters or joining their groups just to see. I did say if it makes you uneasy, that's understandable. Sometimes people will use an alliance, or you can use a different personal email address, alias. But yeah, being able to stay informed of what's happening and what they're currently working on, it allows us to feel more proactive instead of reactive. And then I think this is my last one before I get into some resources that you'll be able to have these slides so you can reference them. Effective communication tips. So try to be positive, even though this is a scary time. People don't like to feel fear-mongered, which we know that that's happening. The majority of people are just really tired of the fear-mongering. They just want to know, like, how is this going to affect my library, my community, myself, my family. So be positive when you're reaching out to people, and just in a way that it's inviting. I'm inviting. I'm open to a conversation. We know that legislators are less likely to reach back out to you if you reach out in a negative fashion. Adapt to their communication style, direct or conversational. We know, I'm sure you have experiences with both types of people. If they ask something you don't know, promise to follow up, and then keep it brief. We know legislators have limited time, so when you are reaching out to them, just be cognizant of that. And then always send a thank you if they are willing to meet with you. Provide that additional information if they are requesting that information. Engaging with their social media. And so I put that in an example because I've noticed that if you like or comment or just that engagement with online, like they start to pay attention, them or their staffers, because we know that a lot of their staffers are the ones managing their socials. But it does, it lets you know that, hey, we're watching, and also we're invested. We want to know what's happening. So sometimes even that can make a little difference. It's always nice when a legislator will come like a post. Um, and then think about building a long-term relationship too, not just this one time. Obviously, right now we're focused on IMLS funding, but who knows what issues could happen in the future. So um, obviously approaching them with this, but then think of other ways that you can maintain that relationship. I know so many libraries are already offering offsite office hours at the library, co-hosting supply drives with your local legislators, any of those information sessions libraries are doing. So all of that is great. It's phenomenal. And then I won't go into all my resources, but just know that they're there. It's a whole bunch of links with, if you are having some censorship issues. I have some recommended reading in there, just if you're interested in the side of advocacy work. But I wanted to make sure to leave plenty of time for questions.
Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank
Those were
you.
tips. So I don't see any questions in the chat. This is one of the times where we are going to pause and take some questions. So if you feel comfortable putting your question in the chat, and Q&A, I'm sorry, the Q&A box, not the chat box. And then also if you would like to raise your hand, that's under the React. We can unmute you and you can ask your question verbally if you'd like. Okay, if I don't see anything, if somebody thinks of something, we will have a Q&A at the very end. Leslie, Carol, and Ashley, that you have been so comprehensive that no one has had any questions, so I thank you for that. And so Leslie, did you have something you wanted to add? Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna, throw in a little humor. Like, let's not forget what the date is today. I believe it is a Friday the 13th. So lots of opportunities for mayhem and good things. That was it.
Okay, so now we're going to switch gears. We have a couple of our member libraries who are joining us today, and they're going to talk about the advocacy efforts they are doing at their libraries in their communities. So our first speaker to that is the Executive Director of Carbondale Public Library, Jennifer Robertson. Jennifer, I am going to turn it over to you. You are also a member of the ILA Advocacy Committee, correct?
Correct, yes. So I will go over some of the resources there briefly and just talk a little bit about what I'm trying to do at our library, though that was all very thorough and I really appreciated all of that information. So I'll see what I have to add. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So there we go. I'm hoping you can see the slideshow. So first of all, for advocacy in libraries, as the director of the library, I think there's definitely some things that you can do to really help be the chief advocate for your library. And a lot of what you're doing is trying to build that political capital through developing relationships. And this is happening throughout the year. It's not just when you need something, you're just out there in the community, you're developing positive relationships with your legislators, with your local government, with your city manager, if you're in a municipal library, the mayor, just going to those meetings and really showing up and sharing when you can. The director, and you really bring your expertise, your your professional credibility, so you can talk about it in a way that, you know, is really information sharing. And you also are needing to really coordinate the strategy, and making sure that everyone within your circle of influence is delivering the messages that you're wanting to have each audience have. So, you know, there's a bunch of resources and information on what those kinds of messages should be. So, but I definitely see that as the role as a library director. So I just included a picture of myself and staff member Lynette Miller and one of our board members, Candace Watson, at this past ILA legislative meetup. So bringing your staff and board along with you, making sure they have those opportunities to be involved with that. So the Board of Trustees, your trustees can really speak as big advocates for the library. They have credibility in certain ways that the library director, you know, and like Ashley was saying, it can be, you know, illegal to talk about certain things as the library director. So they can do it in a way that is not going to be seen as self-serving as it might be coming from members of the staff. Your board also has access to a variety of decision makers depending on their social connections, and I think it's okay to take advantage of that and really look at who they have relationships with as well. They have diverse perspectives and networks as well, and they can take that stronger public advocacy stance than you can as a member of a library staff. And so this is one of our board members at our holiday ugly sweater party. I'm sure she'd be very embarrassed by this photo, but I think it's really nice, just fun getting out there in our community. And then our staff. So I think it's really important to educate our staff. They're really at the front lines of patron interactions, and you can really, if they are educated on advocacy, they can share stories. They have expertise in specific public service impacts, and they really understand, you know, that from a first person personal perspective. So that's super important, but they need to be educated. So we really have to share all of this information with them and make sure that that messaging is going to be what you want to be shared with the public and with people in their networks. So they also have different professional networks, and trying to get staff involved, you know, I encourage staff to join different organizations and groups, and some of it on library time, because it can really benefit the library to have those different connections within the community in a form of embedded librarianship. So this is a picture of our staff this year on our staff day. So. And like Ashley had mentioned, you can lean on your friends group and volunteers. The friends group can really help organize volunteers, but they as well need to be educated. So all of this just takes a lot of time, you know, and I think it's just an ongoing process. So going to those friends meetings, talking to them about these issues. And if you're not the director, that's fine too. Talking to your director about it, trying to talk to the leadership about it, you know, just pressing on the importance of making sure that everyone in the network is working on library advocacy as much as they can. But the Friends definitely has a different community credibility. They have their own networks. They can also help to extend those networks and just really have that diversity of demographics because of their, you know, your friends and volunteers can be of all different age groups and professions and life stages. So very valuable. Oops. Okay, there we go. So let me just look at a few of these resources here from the ILA. So Carol had shared this page. So there is quite a bit. You can look up your state and federal elected officials. You can look on these, important calendar dates. You can submit legislative proposals to the ILA Public Policy Committee, look at advocacy policies and procedures. There's just a lot of good information. I reached out to the committee to see if there was anything specific, because I don't normally give presentations for the committee. If there was anything specific that they thought I should share, and they said that this Ready, Set, Advocate toolkit, it's in the process of being worked on and updated a little bit, but it's very helpful because it has these different presentation recordings and slides that you can share. So it's a great educational tool. Like I was talking about, you could share it with the board of trustees, share it with friends, share it with your staff. Or just look it over yourself. All this toolkit, if you click here, you get the entire thing. And so it has a lot of very helpful information. There's also top 10 advocacy tips. This has a printable, you can hand this out. All the tips are here. So knowing your officials, do your homework, contact public officials personally if possible. Again, being careful to make sure everything is legal. Shrink the message, make it personal, make a clear request, be polite but direct, mobilize, use the media, and don't forget to thank your supporters. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, just to emphasize the legislative meetups. They're taking place in December this year. Directors, staff, trustees, and other library leaders can all attend. And ILA needs help getting the legislators there as well. So even if you're not involved with any of the committees or anything, reaching out to your legislators and inviting them to come, because it's definitely more effective if we have a lot of legislators there to hear the information and to really have those personal connections. It can be a lot of fun. And it just really sends a good message to our legislators about the importance of libraries. And you get that professional presentations of the issues that are being advocated for. And it's important for them to have that personal touch, I think. So yeah, I think that was all I had.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And now I'm going to turn it over to our last speaker of the morning, Director of Millstadt Library, Nichole Lauko. Thank you for joining us, Nichole.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for inviting me. And thank you to everyone for all those great presentations with such great information. I'm going to switch the share here. And yeah, I mean, after all that great information, I'm kind of like, okay, what else can I add? But I'm just going to be really quick, short, and sweet about it. And this is more of kind of a how it works in our library for us. And maybe something will be able to click for you and yours. So, oops. For those of you that don't know, Millstadt Library is a rural village with a population of about 4,000. I've been working at our library for over 8 years, and I'm in several of our organizations around town. I even serve as our vice president on our Chamber of Commerce. And one of the big things that I always stress is getting out in your community, meeting with your people, being out, being in the library all the time. It's great for us to get work done, but it doesn't help us promote our message outside the library. I will say also, as a small rural library, we have some things that work better in our favor to get out in the communities, and then some things that don't at the same time. I mean, we all know everybody. So you're going to see the same 20 people at every single function, volunteering and holding up our community. But being a part of that and making your space there, that's really kind of important. So I'm just going to move on. I'm just going to do, like I said, just a quick overview of what we do to build and identify our supporters, how we stay informed, share information, and take opportunities that come our way. So like Mr. Rogers said, and he's never said anything wrong, you have to find your helpers. So working in libraries, we all know that not everyone is a helper. So it's our job to find those who love the library and their community. Find the people that'll stand up for what we do and the greater good it impacts. You might even find those people that aren't really even for the library, but they understand what it can do for our community. A lot of times it's just, finding those people, just like when you're doing summer reading and okay, I'm going to ask them if they want to sign up. You can kind of get the feel on, are they going to be receptive? Are they not? What are they going to do? And that's how you reach out to the people in your community too. You find out the ones, okay, I can talk to them. They're going to understand. I found my connections by just getting out in the community, from volunteering at local fundraisers and setting up a library table at about any event that will have us. The more people recognize you and you create those relationships, the more you learn about who will help you reach your goals. I mean, after all, every relationship is give and take. And when you give enough, it's okay to ask for some help yourself. Our advocacy started with the building referendum. And I mean, it was ground up. And it was just me asking a bunch of people, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And those connections I've been able to foster and keep going, with the library continuing to grow and reach out and just become an asset to our community. So we've had those long-lasting relationships, and that helps during any time. So one of the big things is that you have to remember that to leverage those relationships you have to be an expert on what your advocacy goals are. So our library's goals are to increase membership, that'll increase literacy in our village, and we're hoping that with increased membership and visibility of our library, we hope that we'll be able to build a facility that can fulfill the needs of our community. To convey these goals, though, we have to know everything about our statistics, our potential costs, and possible outcomes. We also have to keep up to date on library and literacy trends. With issues like the possible IMLS cuts, we have to know everything we can about the situation in order to share this with our helpers. Because as we all know, without the IMLS funding, the services we provide will be impacted. So the way that I stay up to date is reading the listserv emails, following ALA, ILA, EveryLibrary, and other library organizations, and even book publishers on social media and their email newsletters. You could even set up an RSS feed with keywords just to make sure you keep up to date with the latest developments. I mean, there's lots of options there. And I mean, we've seen so many great resources shared today. But once we have that information, it's our job to share it. With those possible cuts, we read through all of the news sources and created our own blog post on it. The blog post we created had bold headings and explanations that cut to the quick on what the situation is, how it affects our library, and what our patrons or community members could do to help. This included links to the pages to sign petitions and email addresses of local politicians. We also took the message provided by ALA and edited it to fit our particular library. So it allowed our patrons to simply copy and paste a message to make it easier for them to advocate for us. And of course, we didn't say, hey, you have to do this. We didn't lean towards one side or the other of the political stances out there. It's just explaining what's going on and what it could mean, and, saying, hey, you can actually help with this. I will say that if you make the information more tailored to your library, to your community, you're going to create a more relatable message, and that's going to increase your chances of an action being taken. The next step also is really important. It's applying your knowledge and a call to action to your helpers on your platforms. So we shared this blog post on our Facebook and Instagram pages. That's where most of our people are. Shared it to our local magazine that sends out weekly emails. And we talked to patrons, businesses, and others we could identify as helpers to become aware of the situation. And again, it's just kind of weaving those conversations when you're at a meeting. Like if I'm at the Historical Society meeting, I'm saying, hey, look at this, we could maybe do something about it. I'm at a chamber event and I'm talking to other business owners in our community about how these cuts are possible and what it would mean, what it means for our community. I was even at the YMCA, and I just was able to fit it in there and talk to some people about what this actually means. Unless you're working in it, sometimes you just don't get it because it doesn't, impact your everyday life. The other thing we do is don't be afraid to say yes. I mean, sometimes I'm sure most of us, especially the higher up you get, you got to learn to say no. But yes is always my favorite word. Our blog post had actually caught the attention of the 21st show from Illinois Public Media. And I was asked to participate in a radio interview about the IMLS defunding and what it could mean. So these are great opportunities, but you have to know that when you're talking with a bunch of other people or being asked by media, different questions, that you have to know everything that you can about these situations. Because when you're doing these discussions with other library leaders, they're going to have the same kinds of talks. But so you want to be able to add to those conversations, not just repeat great information, even if that might be most pertinent. So like for our library, if those cuts did go through, the most pertinent thing for us is the delivery. And that's, how we might talk to our patrons because they understand that, they get that impact. But for other library leaders, they've already talked about it. So like when we talked on the show, we talked about the other issues that could be cut, like Directors University. So it's just good to stay well informed on what's going on as a whole. The other thing is, so like I said, this all kind of started off back when I was starting my job here at the library and with our referendums and all that. And it's about just using those relationships that you've built. So I've got a pretty good relationship with a local newspaper called the Republic Times. It's out of Monroe County, which isn't even in St. Clair where we're located, but they're very similar to what Millstadt is and what our people do. And so I've got good contacts there, and like we send them our events every other week at no cost to publish in their paper. So one of our contacts there, he actually contacted me, said that Jamie Raxford, the director of Waterloo, Morrison Talbot, she had reached out and said, hey, have you heard about this? And thanks to her sending that out to him, he reached out to myself and other local library personnel. And we were able to talk about, what this actually means. And again, I sent over just a short email that was, to the point of what it means for us locally, broader as well. And so there's a nice article going to thousands of households in our area, just outlining this. Here on this page, this is it. Like I said, short and sweet. There's just some links to our blog post if you want to see what that kind of looks like, what maybe you could do as well. A link to that radio show, and then a link to the article from the Republic Times. But just saying, advocacy really is a part of our job. For directors, staff, volunteers, and our board, every person connected to our library is a part of our brand, and the message conveyed should remain constant. So be sure to educate all your staff and your board on issues and what our stance is on those issues. That helps prepare them for those conversations and equips them with the knowledge they need to advocate as well. So when you're doing those little meetings between shifts, or you're at your board meeting or your friends meeting, tell them, say, hey, this is what's going on, and this is how we can talk about it. So thank you again for having me, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Nichole. I want to thank all of our speakers who were here with us this morning. I'd like to thank all of you who joined us this morning. I am not seeing any questions in the Q&A box, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them of any of our panelists. Also, any of our panelists, if you've thought of something while others were speaking, if you would like to make any remarks, you are also welcome to do so. But I would like to thank everyone again. I thank you, Leslie, Carol, Ashley, Jennifer, and Nichole for speaking so eloquently on these topics today. Thank you all for taking time out of your Friday the 13th morning. And again, this has been recorded and will be available. Information about that should be out sometime in the next week.
Okay.
So, yes.
Jackie had their hand up.
Oh, Jackie.
I was just clapping.
Oh,
Okay, on me, sorry.
no, but good eye. The closed captioning covered that up for me, Jackie. Leslie, did you have anything to add?
I want to, again, I want to thank all our speakers that were willing and excited to talk about what happens at the local level, what they're doing, and the kinds of work that Jennifer and Nichole's organizations are engaged in is where we need to be. It's where we need to be in terms of serving our patrons. It's where we need to be in terms of informing our patrons. So, yes, it's a little bit restrictive in what we can and can't do when we're on the clock, when we're paid by our respective organization. But it's also important to lean into that education piece that Ashley was referring to share advocacy resources, such as the ones that we have that Carol pointed out to all of you this morning. All of that is good. All of that is appropriate political activity in my world, in my mind. And just thank you all for the work you're doing. And please never hesitate to let us know at IHLS what you need from us, because we had a session like this, I believe, was it in April, Kate? Our first session? Maybe.
March? I think it was
March? Was it okay?
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a quick spring. It's just flying. And that led to us, kind of motivated us to work even harder on our advocacy page for this topic. So all of that helps us, helps energize our staff, and helps us hopefully give you the tools that you need. So please don't be shy about that. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Leslie. Ashley, did you have any closing remarks?
I just wanted to say thank you one more time for inviting me. I am local, so I'm here to help in any way. I would love for groups of basically trainings for friends groups. I feel like I'm starting to hear more and more of friends members wanting to network and train with other friends members and learning from each other. But my whole point to all of that is that I'm here and I'm local. And if there's anything that I can do, I'm happy to do it. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So again, everyone, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all for joining us and hope to see you all soon.